Yeah, it is the cold air that made me remember that in my sleep. It's blowing in from the windows, and I have to circulate the air in here too because of the mold. I just started running a small little power saver heater sitting in front of it. Now, here's the worst part. It's the warmest part of the year. It's supposed to be like 60 on the dot right now, and the air is probably only about 55 that's blowing in. Probably a wind chill, just making it 55. Now, to most people, with a sweater and a blanket, that's not a big issue. For somebody like me with a neurological condition, that's enough to trigger it. I was shaking quite a bit when I woke up. I don't feel good. My lightning down my spine is awful. And there's no glowing screens, there's no noise, it's quiet and it's dark. The cold is by far one of the most painful and worst triggers. I was left out in the cold to deal with this myself several times, begging for my parents to look into it, begging to come home. Same thing all the way back in New Mexico. Left outside the shake, passed out on the ground. Just so many horrible things done to me. And I remember that night at 7 years old in Westford was the worst it ever was. And that's when it fully became in my body. Before that, there was never this feeling. And as the drugs continued, yeah, it got worse. Behavioral, it was pretty bad, and I was getting triggered by cold pretty damn bad. And at that time, the only drug I was doing was cigarettes. It was a way to get back at my mother. And when I smoked in the cold, yeah, it was much worse. If things would happen to me that were bad. I still have memories of all these bad things. And when I dream about them, I'm back in it. But I'll deal with it. I'll put on some happy memories, think about those, put the heater on me. Can't really do anything about closing the windows or I'll have heart palpitations and breathing problems from the mold. And it's not supposed to be that cold. It's the warmest time of the year. If I have this much trouble this time of year, what the hell is going to happen during fall when the windows have to be closed? What happens when that mold starts getting to me? What happens if I open the window so the mold doesn't get to me? Doesn't matter if it's July and August, I still have problems at night. It's too cold. And what am I going to do if this GI issue and these seizures put me out of work? What? Live outside in this crap? Have seizures every day again? While my parents go drink martinis and go on vacations like they did when it was happening to me in Haverhill, like it was when it was happening to me. I mean, even when this was at its worst at 7 years old, they left me on a pile of newspapers. While they left me on that pile of newspapers to pass out and have all these horrible things like breathing slowing down, I couldn't talk, couldn't walk, couldn't move my body. I was having this lightning feeling down my spine. And then when I woke up, it was permanent. They probably let me sleep, changed the TV, and decided to have a drink. Sounds pretty close to what they're doing now. They probably are watching the TV, going out to eat, having a drink, sitting on the beach, still not worrying a damn about me. They didn't worry a damn about me when I was 7 when this happened to me. They didn't worry a damn about me when I was having problems with cold at 10. When they put me in New Mexico, they didn't care a damn about me. They left me there, checked up on me like once a month for like, what, an hour once a month? Of course you're not seeing shit if that's the case. Of course you're not paying no fucking attention. And if the staff are choking you, doing things to the girl in the bathroom, that's their dorm, the girls' dorm. If these things are happening from the staff, you think he gives a fuck that I'm shaking out in the field, that I'm passing out in a fetal position? Of course not. And of course, I don't have the skills to really go through this with them in 1 hour. I tell them that this place is awful. I make it clear. I give them the biggest no's, this place is awful, that I possibly can. And then afterwards, do they want to hear more about my suffering? No, they want to put me with a therapist to talk about and collect their money. That's about it. Then, do they want to try to keep me close and hear what's going on with me? No. They want to put me in more programs. They want to find other ways that they don't have to keep an eye on me. Just drug me, shut me up, and you don't have to pay any attention to me. And my mother, she knew about this. I told her about that night over and over. I told her about some of the awful meds over and over, and she continued. The only problem with my father is he didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to hear the arguments. He didn't want to hear the fights. He didn't want to hear my medical conditions. He didn't want to hear anything about the medication. He had good advice. He was a good father, but not when it came to that. Not when it came to my health or paying attention to the atrocities that were happening under his own house. And it still continues today, 25 years of it. But at least I have a happy memory mixed in there of wrestling with my nephew. I also have happy memories of playing with him outside during summer. I have a lot of good memories, but mostly during summer. I don't have any good memories of when the cold comes in. And right now, it's supposed to be the warmest time of the year, and the cold is getting here. It's nighttime, the cold air is blowing in, and everybody else would say 55 is nothing. Or they would look at the phone and say it says 60, when it's definitely not 60. But this, to me, it's freezing temperature. It's brutal. It hurts. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares if Zach is hurting. They didn't care when I was 7. They didn't care when I was 9. They didn't care when I was 11. They didn't care when I was 14. They didn't care when I was 18. They didn't care if I was 19. They just never cared. They cared enough to just put me someplace else and let me suffer someplace else. They cared enough where I mentioned it at the doctor, they could tell me to shut up. It was a long time ago. That's the level of care I got. If they wanted me, if they came up with some narrative like a psychiatrist, or they wanted to load me up with more drugs, or they wanted Social Security, they would push that narrative and they would care about that. But the stuff I was talking about, the stuff that I was trying to get done with my mother, the stuff I was trying to talk about, what concerned me and should have concerned my father that regarded my mother, no, they didn't care about that stuff. Only if there was somebody else to blame. If I mentioned somebody else's name, oh, all of a sudden everybody cares. But if it had to do with my family, if it had to do with my disorder, if there was anything to do with them, they didn't want me talking about it. They didn't want to get to the bottom of it, because they might have to take responsibility, or there might be some consequences that they don't want to deal with. So they didn't. That's simple.